Hey guys, welcome back. Today I want to show you how I use light in my subject paintings to give a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more depth, 3D feel. And the subject we're going to be creating is a Air Gensi. Gensi. Gensai? Gensi? Well, without further ado, let's start. Alright, and we're off. Like I mentioned, we are going to focus this video on sunlight to make the subject more dynamic looking. And let's quickly go over the character design. This is our Air Genasi, or Gensi, known for the origins of Air Degen, Air Genies, air-related characteristics. Designing this one with leather armor and elements that portray wind. And what better way to do that is with a flowing cloak. As you can see, I started with my character sketch and also filled or blocked him in with a grayscale value. Each article or element, armor, cloak, skin, etc. have their different own values. This is just kind of separate them out so I can visually work on each element alone. Really break down the focus for this piece. And then I get right into it. I start with my shadows on the armor. Then once I have a good foot on that, I start going in with a lighter tone of that brown there and start to create texture. And this is where I start to imagine, okay, he's gonna be on top of a peak where it's really windy. The cloak's blowing, so how about we get some sunlight in there, like it's maybe a sunrise. So at this stage I'm really determining on, okay, what position or what angle is this light going to come from. So then I start to adjust the light values and the dark values accordingly. And as you know, throughout my art process, I bounce around a lot. That's just kind of my process. ADHD, whatever you want to call it. I don't know if every other artist does this, but this is my technique and it works good for me. But I start to kind of make out some detail on the shoulder pads there, as you can see. Start tweaking the shadows more. And then with other elements like the belt there, I'll start to block in with its own layer. Now you'll notice that layer for the sketch I'll turn on and off just to see how the rendering looks by itself without those lines. And that's just to kind of give me an idea of where the rendering is going. Eventually I just take it off completely or hide it, but it gives me a good indication of where to put in the shadows and lights to kind of separate the shoulder pads from each individual piece of armor on the overall piece of that, well, armor. You will also see me tweak some of the lighter values on the armor, and just throughout the whole piece, just trying to really zone in and get that sun, or the angle of the sun light coming in, and have it look natural, so it makes sense. I do keep in the back of my head the idea of bounce light. So not only do you see me creating shadows on the right side of the subject, I also kind of keep a little light on the bottom reflecting off the ground, as you can see in the sheath. The brush I mainly use for this subject, or this piece, I got this brush from Gumroad, and it is a part of Dave Gresho's brush pack, and I hope I'm saying his last name correct. I do enjoy a lot of his videos. He's a phenomenal artist. And when I actually started doing digital painting, I think he was one of the very first artists I started to follow and take notes from. Start getting into the pants, the same kind of process. I block it out with a certain color that I think I may use or stick with, and then go back in, select that color, go to my color wheel, angle down into a darker color for the shadows, and so on and so forth with the light. As you can see for the cloak too, with the wrinkle and folds of cloth, I go pretty loose and a little wild for start. I do follow the guidelines. I mean, they're not really guidelines, it's just quick sketches, lines here and there to give the appearance of those folds and bends and whatnot in the cloth. But I will take a higher value or a lighter color of that green and just kind of loosely throw it on there. Eventually I do start tweaking it and defining those lighter values that go into the darks, giving the illusion of clothing, the folds and whatnot. And here I move into the face, now that I have a general idea, or it's pretty much pinpointed down where I want the exact location or angle from this sunlight coming in. So I start with a lighter color on the face. I know the Air Gensaai, Genasi, typically from the art I've seen, they have a lighter blue skin or even a whitish, to the point where, to me, it's not my style. I do like a little bit more darker, a little bit more grounded, I suppose, less vibrant, anime, cartoony, let's just say that. I did realize, well, I didn't realize, somebody had mentioned to me that they mistaken this character once I posted it to several of my groups, that it looked like Drizzt, and I can see that. You know, as soon as they mentioned it, I was like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, green cloak, and you have a darker toned, skin color. I did make his hair whiter. So yeah, I was like, oh, okay, well, I see it, but, I still am happy of how it turned out, and so did the client. You also notice too that I added a rim light on the right side of his face. I think that's just good practice. I don't know if everybody does that or if it's just kind of like a given rule maybe, but it definitely helps bring out detail in the face and any other kind of element is that rim light. And yep, here's the hair. As you can see, it's just very fast, loose. Just getting some initial strokes down. I keep going back to the face. For this piece, it really bugged me. I did a few passes on the face. I had a reference piece of some kind of model, and after a while I just scrapped it, and then I'll just go off of my own, imagination. And I just, for some reason, just every time I looked at it, it's like, okay, I gotta change this up. I gotta make it look a little different. But eventually I get there. It just takes a few times. I guess if I made a separate video for it, you could see how the face changes multiple times as I do it. Obviously not every second of me doing the face is on here. There was a lot of off-camera action that went with it. But like I said, eventually I get it. Satisfied with it, I suppose. It's a process of just building up your light values and your darks to kind of sculpt it. Imagine it being a piece of clay or something. And putting some of that rim light on his fingers. I mean, it really does do the difference. For me at least. It makes him pop more against his, the under shadow of his cloak. It kind of makes it come out more, I suppose. Eventually, I think I do get rid of that rim light on his tricep there. It doesn't really make sense. The way the cloak is kind of hanging or engulfed around his arm. I just don't see any kind of light that would cast a rim light coming through. And as I go, I just start to block in the rest of the elements, like the sword there. You see his little cloak coasters, I suppose. They look like coasters to me, but pendants or whatever you'd want to call them, cloak clip. And then I start fooling around with some colors and some different layer filters, seeing what looks cool. In the end, I just pick a orangish yellow color to portray that sunlight. As I was marking down some colors that are going to signify where that sunlight is hitting, as you can see on the cloak there, that wasn't really planned or in mind. As I was starting to lay it down, I'm like, well, I guess it would look more dynamic and more depthful if I made the cloak kind of peek out behind him and some of that light does catch. The same thing with his bracer there. I make it a little lighter where that sunlight's going to hit. It just overall makes it feel more 3D, I suppose. More interesting than just having, one solid side of the left be light and the other right would be, you know, shadow. And once I'm feeling pretty good about where these sun spots are going to be on the subject, you know, I like to start getting really, you know, I zoom in a little bit more on that third level tier, and get really in there and start doing some detail on the belt. I think another thing too, now that I realize it, is I have those details around the rims of the shoulder pads there. I think that really kind of sealed the deal as far as somebody thinking that it was Drizzt. I know that Drizzt has like that fur in in one of his armor, leather armor looks. I cannot recall what book it was from, but I do remember seeing it, and I guess those little, you know, that little detail there makes it kind of sell the fact that it may be like, you know, a fur look, I suppose. I don't know. Somebody in the comics can let me know what book that is, or, you know, what are your thoughts? Does it look like Drizzt? There I am with the face again. You know, and with the green on the cloak, I did want to incorporate some of that, you know, green on the surrounding elements. That would be, you know, your bounce light and everything. So, as you can see, there's a little bit of green on his face. More on the shadow part. Because a good rule is that whatever the color the surrounding is of the subject, that is going to be incorporated with the shadow. And yep, here we are, getting some more detail in there. I love detail. Once I get it to a good spot, then I start to imagine like, okay, is this armor gonna have some really cool patterns? You know, maybe the face has some, you know, more texture in it, the cloth. I don't want to go too crazy with creating detail everywhere on the subject. Then I just feel like it gets a little too busy. So I try to like focus on, you know, one area. And then if I do add any other kind of detail around the subject, it's pretty subtle. I want the eye to kind of, I guess, flow from the face, you know, maybe to the cloak, maybe back around to his little loincloth there. So here I have a separate layer for the sunrise light, and I put the filter to overlay, and I grab myself a orange color, and I just start to take a soft round brush, and I start to kind of fill in where that light's gonna hit. Now making multiple layers for, you know, the skin, because the skin is a dark blue, the leather is a brown. Overlay is going to interact with certain values a different way, right? So there's multiple layers for this, you know, this light. And even applying these lights, you know, makes me look at the subject and tweak it, because, you know, it's like, okay, well, if the light's coming from here, then maybe I don't want it to be as much contrast on the face, so the shadow isn't going to be as strong, so I'll put in a lighter value. So it's not a, you know, one pass and it's right. It's, you know, a back and forth, seeing what looks good, knowing your tools, but still having fun and playing around with it. I've made plenty of pieces where I use different kinds of layer filters, messed with the lighting, and had some pretty bizarre results that looked really cool, but unfortunately it was, not what the client was looking for. But it's still pretty fun to just play around. I didn't really focus too much on the stones he's standing on, or rocks, I suppose. The background either, a little blurred out, as you can see. Again, I just wanted this piece is more focused on the subject itself, so I didn't want to get too crazy with the ground, the background, things of that sort. This piece is meant for you just to focus on the subject itself. I can do a video where we go into more length about a full scene with a bunch of detail. There's certain things that I do where I'll add detail to certain areas, and those areas are where I want your eye to flow, to kind of just make it easier on the viewer's eyes, I suppose. And enough about my process. A little bit about who this character is, the background. I got a little snippet of his background. It's not for the faint-hearted, so fair warning. So, meet Johann Kendricks. Now, Kendricks, he was a noble child who had a nice upbringing. Then his parents had another child. The younger brother was better than him at everything, and he became pretty jealous of his brother. He was getting pretty jealous. He's getting all the attention, to the point where he felt nearly abandoned. Well, one day he snapped, and that was when he made his first soul knife, cutting the face off his brother in a crazed attempt to win back favor. That's the snippet I got, and yeah, it seems like that campaign, is a little bit more, grounded, I would say. But still pretty interesting. Shout out to RJ for commissioning me for this piece. This was great to do. I really liked creating this one. I'd just been seeing all sorts of different pictures with, or art pieces too, with these very moody, dramatic sunlight, sunrise, sunset sort of, pictures, and yeah, I was like, okay, well, let's give it a shot. I want to see what I can do, for that. So there you have it. That is my version of a Air Genasi. I don't know. Someone's gonna have to comment. Let me know in the comments what the heck how it's pronounced. There's a few different ways. Just like drow or drow. But anyways, till next time, I'll catch you later. And if you want to check out any other episodes I have, see what other creations I make, they'll pop up here in a little bit. Later.